All right. Give me a 4-second delay for some reason, but we are live. We are tackling a Dynasty startup mock draft. Take a little mini intermission away from all the redraft content we've been pumping out. Yesterday's video doing absolute numbers. Obviously, appreciate you guys for supporting that video. If you haven't checked it out yet, I basically broke down from like start to finish my entire strategy in redraft leagues this year. And then, of course, this week, we're going to be breaking down the strategy for like picks 1 to 4. If you guys have an early pick, picks 5 to 8. If you have like a middle first round pick, and then picks 9 to 12 as well. So that'll be a ton of fun. And then, of course, we'll also be getting into our superlatives very, very soon as well. So we got a GM in here. I believe it's good afternoon. So we got a GA in the chat right now. Hamilton's finest, Bindle says.
Appreciate that.
We got some spots available in the mock draft. All of you guys are saying, how can I get in these mocks? I mean, you got 3 spots remaining. So you got a little bit of time. The draft link is in there right now. 2 more spots remaining. It's filling up pretty quick. We're going to be tackling a pretty standard format, super flex, PPR mock draft, no tight end premium. I believe it's like a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex, 1 super flex type of thing. So nothing too crazy, but I think it's interesting now that we're in the preseason. We've seen some training camp buzz. Let's see kind of how it's affected some of the startup landscape of some of these players, because there's certain players that are kind of going up and down in training camp right now. So I'm going to share my screen here.
Yep.
Because we have the mock draft full, and then we can get right into this thing here. So here we go, and let me get this crap off the screen, and we are good here. Do you guys prefer this view, or do you guys like when we're on the side here? Sorry, that's not what I want. When we're here. Do you guys like when we're here, or do you like when we're on the bottom? I don't really give a shit, but if you guys can see better the other way, it's fine. Either way. So let's get this thing going. We're going to randomize the draft order, and then we will get into this thing. So
how many flexes you got there?
It is 2 flexes, 2 wide receivers. So it's a start 9. So it's a little bit shallower of a league format. By like round 7 or 8, I'll probably trim the clock down to 30 seconds as well, just to make sure we're not going too long on this thing. I'm picking at the 10 slot. Danny's at the 2 slot. So let's start this up. No one auto draft, especially in the first round, or you're fired. Exactly. They said side. Okay, a lot of people like the side view better, so we'll keep it on this one. LFG, what's going on? A, what's up, Pionio? Calvin Austin stock about to go way up after the preseason. I didn't watch that game in the second half. I know it's funny because like literally my team was playing. All I really cared about was like the Kenny Pickett drive and or the drives. I guess I think he had multiple. And then Baker Mayfield looked okay in his production as well. Calvin Austin, I'm guessing he played a lot of slot snaps, but I don't think he played much with the starters.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I just wanted to quickly point out, by the way, Corey, do you mind resharing your screen and keeping it to the tab just so it's easier to see?
Yeah.
Just figured the people would appreciate that. And I just had a Corey.
Yeah, got to change your battery. We'll put Danny in the backdrop for a second. He went with Josh Allen with his first pick. Not much analysis needed anyway. I ended up randomizing the draft order here. The real strat is getting pinged in the Discord. Yeah, Jared is instantaneous when it comes to these mock drafts. I don't think I've ever seen Jared not in one of these. So if you guys are in our Flock Discord, obviously, I put the link in the mock draft tab before I put it into the YouTube chat here. So Jared was the first one in here. I live in Scarborough. Okay, so we got a little Ontarian lad here in the chat. Iasovis Goat, some Andre I love in the chat here. So I'm on the clock here at the 110. We go quarterbacks so often in the first round. I think man, it's tough because I actually have Watson like right behind this. I'm going to see how my team kind of looks here with going Chase in the first round and see if I'm still able to kind of make up that ground at quarterback. Because I'm sure you guys are sick of watching us just draft like 2 elite quarterbacks every time we do one of these mocks. So I'll mix it up here and see how I can do things differently. Thoughts on Tank Dell? So I actually did watch. I was out at a bar watching that game with one of my buddies, and I thought Tank Dell looked good, man. I'm pretty impressed with his usage because he played. I have it actually pulled up here. I'll pull it up right now. Tank Dell ended up playing, I believe it was 11 snaps. Yeah, so there was 12 total snaps with the starter. CJ Stroud played 12 snaps. Tank Dell played 11 of those snaps and ran 7 routes, which was the most out of any wide receiver. And he had a target and obviously like a kind of a juggling like touchdown catch that he had there. But the notable thing is the usage, because he's a 3rd-round rookie wide receiver. Both Nico Collins and John Mechie should have seniority over him because Mechie was a higher pick. second rounder last year. Nico Collins obviously has been there for a couple years now, and he was a high pick as well. Robert Woods didn't play in the game, so maybe that's why Tank Dell was playing so much. But if Robert Woods plays in the next preseason game, that'll definitely be something interesting to monitor, because if Tank Dell is going to be out there in 3 wide receiver sets, 3 wide receiver sets, and not just limited to like a part-time player right away, he's definitely going to be a viable sleeper in fantasy. And apparently, I mean, if we go back to the narrative, it sounds like Bijan Robinson. It sounds like CJ Stroud wanted him in the fixture there when he told him to draft him. So I'm going to do something real crazy. I'm going to start the draft Chase Robinson and see how this thing kind of goes. We always take quarterbacks early. I'm going to mix it up, go with Chase Robinson. Maybe I build out a competitive type of team here, given that start to the draft. Something new, you know?
Yeah, I dig it. Sorry, by the way, it's just figuring out my camera there. Yeah, so far, pretty bog standard start. We do see, though, Deshaun Watson falling to the 2-2. Yeah, I guess if you swap Watson and Richardson, it makes more sense. But yeah, no, pretty standard though, for the most part.
Yeah. So Will says 12-team PPR, Burks in a mid-second or Jahan Dotson. Both would be my wide receiver 4. So I personally would take Burks and bank the 2 there. I think there's I do prefer Dotson slightly, but I think in a rebuild or any kind of situation where you're acquiring a young receiver, banking a young receiver plus a pick is something that you're always going to kind of want to do as a good like process move, because generally speaking, Burks was the better prospect. Dotson had the better rookie season. They're probably on par, relatively speaking. So I would say give me Burks in the second there, Will.
Yeah, and I mean, like, just go back to the deal real quick. Even just from a macro level, if you're breaking down this deal, like, I don't have enough conviction on ranking Dotson over Burks or Burks over Dotson either way, that if I can bank a mid-second and I can use that as buying power for maybe a veteran running back in season, or maybe you hold that pick and you move it at the draft next year, having that extra mid-second is going to be very beneficial to you, especially because you're literally moving. Even if you prefer Dotson, like, you can't have these guys ranked more than 4 or 5 spots within each other.
Yeah, like I'm like the noted Burks hater and Dotson truther, and even still I have them in the same tier. Like I have Dotson, I think, at like wide receiver 24 or something in my dynasty rankings, and then Burks is like wide receiver 29 or something. Like they're not that far off.
Yeah, no, they're close for me.
What's up, fellas? What's going on, space? Hey,
What's
boys,
up?
GM, GA. Marty says, maybe you guys might be on the West Coast or something. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Marty says, hey, boys, house money team, only 8-team league. Should I trade JSN for an early to mid first? I will take the early to mid first over JSN
easily.
Slightly. Maybe not easily. I would say slightly, but because an early to mid first in an 8-team league, you probably there's a good chance that it's going to be a high pick. But you also lose a little bit of value if it's super flex on the quarterback position and that kind of thing in an 8-team format. But yeah, I'll take the early pick, especially if you're in a house money, you're not trying to compete right away. Just re-rolling into more draft capital makes some sense.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is, especially Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to be probably like a top 7 quarterback in Dynasty right off the bat as soon as he comes into the league. And, you got a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May, maybe one of the running backs emerges. So for me personally, I just want the early to mid first. And assuming it's an early to mid in a 8-team league, you're probably looking at 102 to 104.
Yeah, exactly. I can't pronounce that name, but Lamar plus ARSB or Trevor Lawrence plus Higgins. Which side you got?
Lamar and ARSB.
Yeah, I think Lamar and T-Law are like throw them into a blender and pick one. Like I don't really give a shit. They're basically the same asset for me in terms of overall value. Lamar's a little bit better for a win now. T-Law's a little bit better for a rebuild. But I would definitely prefer Amon-Ra to T. Higgins. So yeah, that would be my direction as well. I'm happy after the first few preseason games. My 4 rookies are A-Chain, Mingo, Michael Wilson, and Tank Dell. So the Panthers play today, right? So they haven't played yet, I believe. I wouldn't be too excited about A-Chain. Like I think he had like some plays where he looked a little decent, but he was playing, in the receiving. I think he had like 4 targets or something like that. I am concerned a little bit knowing that Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert got the night off and A-Chain played well into the second quarter, I believe it was. I get it. He's a rookie and want to get him some reps and that kind of thing. But I do think at least it reinforces the idea that he's going to be behind those guys early on in the season. So he's more of like a late season type of play.
Yeah, no, I agree with your rationale here. I will say It is still only the first preseason game. If this, keeps going into the second and third game, why
Did you
am
just
I?
get auto-drafted Tyreek?
It just automatically automatic. No.
Yeah,
Reverse that.
I'll remove it.
I didn't even get an opportunity to make the pick. It just skipped my pick. Oh, what the hell?
I think because Chef auto-drafted, it may have like put the auto onto you for some reason, which is weird. I've never seen that happen.
Very, very weird. So did I just get Rince dry at receiver?
Yeah, you kind of did.
At this point, running back, I don't want to take JT here.
London's still there. You could go with somebody like that.
Could go with London. I could go with Mark Andrews because I have kind of like a win now quarterback core, and I can just smash out my receivers and running backs in that range. You know what? Let me mix it up. Let me go a little bit more win now. I'll get Mark Andrews here. I'll worry about my wide receivers and running backs in the mid rounds, and I'll make sure that my quarterbacks and my tight ends, especially, well, it's not technically onesies because it's a superflex format, but the onesie quote unquote positions are very strong for me.
Yeah, and also to Jasmine's point, Michael Wilson looked pretty good. I watched a lot of the first bit of that Cardinals game. He looks big and kind of explosive, and obviously with the like smallest receiver core I've ever seen in my life with the Arizona Cardinals, having some size there gives them a different dimension. And then Tank Dell, yeah, we already kind of talked about him. Great usage, looked pretty good. Going Fields or JJ is a tough decision. I agree. He's definitely the pivot point because Fields presents the higher upside as the quarterback asset. He has more, value accumulation potential. Even though he's already very valuable, he could still, increase his value yet another first round pick up to where Jalen Hurts is right now if we see like a breakout season from him this year. But Justin Jefferson is definitely the cleaner projection as the guy that we know is probably the best in the NFL at his position.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking Dynasty, right?
Yeah, because Claire was picking 1-8, and she was like, do I go like Fields versus Jefferson's a tough decision, which I totally agree with. I think it is really tough.
I mean, it's definitely a tough decision. I would say Fields would be the next quarterback after Jeff and Chase for me. It's like, again, if you're a full believer of Fields, I would absolutely take him over the wide receivers. Whereas if you're a little bit more, not pessimistic, but kind of understanding the full range of outcomes when it comes to Fields, that, yeah, it's more than likely that he's going to, ascend and be this elite rushing asset. But worst case scenario, if his downside case does hit, I kind of just want to be secured by the two elite, like generational type of wide receivers in that area. So agreed that that's probably about a tier, I would say. But for me personally, I got to go with the wide receivers. And then once the two wide receivers are off, I'm comfortable taking Fields.
I'm hella cheesed. I wanted to go like really commit to a win now and go with Diggs there. I thought that was like kind of a like. So I don't know if you have this in your rankings, but for me, I have Tyreek and Diggs like a slight mini tier ahead of Kupp and Adams. As far as the win now guys, for me, I view them as like maybe like a second round pick more valuable just because they're a little bit younger than Kupp and Adams are. But either way, it's pretty decent there. I think I'm going to go with Smith here because I think I could go in the direction of maybe going with another running back because I am kind of building out a win now. I also should probably grab a quarterback at some point, but I'm not like totally in love with the board right now. I think maybe Smith on the way back, I'd be comfortable with any one of like Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones in the fourth round. But I thought Smith was kind of a bit of a tier break there at wide receiver for me because I already have Chase. I wasn't really going to go with Higgins.
Got you. Okay. I was going to say, okay, that makes sense.
Smith and Chase are Smith and Higgins, sorry for me, are like throw them into a blender, and the fact that I already have Chase kind of is the tiebreaker.
Makes sense. Had a 10-team PPR draft with some friends the other day. I think you might enjoy this one. Mahomes at the 1-7, ETN at the 2-1, Pitts at the 3-1, Evan Ingram at the 3-2, Pollard at the 4-3, Tyler Bass at the 8-1.
I'm guessing this is a home league draft.
The highlights.
These are hilarious.
I thought this was your team for a second.
No. Like these are picks that are hilarious. Okay. Like Mahomes at 1-7 in a home league is probably going to happen a lot, I would imagine. ETN at 2-1 is pretty crazy. Pitts at 3-1.
What?
Evan Ingram at 3-2. Pollard at 4-3 is ridiculous. I hope that was you that made that pick. Tyler Bass at 8-1 is hilarious too. I helped BMAC with a home league draft, and some guy drafted 2 kickers and 2 defenses before round 13. I'm like, dude, this is free cash. Like, this is the easiest home league draft I've ever seen.
I love chopping it up with BMAC when he talks about some of his home leagues, because some of the shit that goes on in them is just hilarious. By the way,
somebody took Lamar 1-3 in that draft because he's a diehard Ravens fan.
By the way, so Andrew said that his team. Now I see maybe why you didn't have Pollard, considering the fact that you have Bijan, CD, Amon St. Brown, Calvin Ridley, Lamar Jackson, Brees Hall, Michael.
So I'm going to do something that like you are never going to see me do probably ever again. I'm going to take Travis Kelce because I'm building out a
Yeah.
win now. I'm thinking like, is the like better positional longevity of Daniel Jones going to really help me out in a win now team? Like, just give me the guy that can absolutely smash his position. I can fill out quarterbacks later on with win now guys. So this is like uncharted territory for me as far as like a dynasty startup. You're pretty much never going to see me do what I'm doing right now, but this is kind of why we do mock drafts, right? I always, you want to, in a room where everyone's sharp and taking, quarterbacks highly and wide receivers and stuff highly. It's important to kind of get the other side of the coin where you're kind of venturing outside of your comfort zone.
Am I tripping? Oh, okay. We left off here. Yeah, Tank Dell. Yeah, no, I agree with you. By the way, sorry, I was just dealing with some
No, you're good.
spam comment.
Yeah. Yeah. Woods is cooked. Yeah. I don't know if Woods is cooked necessarily. I still think he's going to be a little bit of the thorn of Tank Dell / John Mechie and Nico Collins' side. I think the usage might be a problem. So I hope he plays in the next preseason game so we get a real representation of maybe what their 3 wide receiver set is, mainly for best ball purposes. I'm not totally excited about any of these guys from like a season long perspective, aside from maybe Tank Dell and Nico Collins. But for the most part, I think in best ball, it's important to know like kind of who's playing in 3 wide receiver sets and that kind of thing.
I agree.
Yeah, Dell. I mean, Dell's interesting for sure. He's definitely a guy that can get open.
Player.
What's up, my peeps? What's going on, Henry? Finished up a startup now. People are drafting very close to ADP, snapping value everywhere. Yeah,
Let's go.
People draft. I find during the preseason and during like close to the regular season, people go venture away from ADP more so than stick to it. I think in like January startups is when people are sticking more for ADP than they are now. I feel like people go off the board a little bit more now.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you there. Our quarterbacks as valuable in redraft superflex as they are in dynasty are a little less. Have the 109 spot. Not sure who to target. I would say obviously it will be a little less valuable because I mean in a dynasty you're getting an in prime quarterback for 5+ years. That's going to give you a significant edge. Whereas in redraft you're only getting it for 1 year. So inherently the positions. Like a running back position is going to be way more valuable in redraft than dynasty because you're not worried about the longevity factor. As soon as you rip out the longevity factor and you're just looking at that intermediate point production, that immediate point production, I would say quarterbacks and wide receivers compared to dynasty are less valued. However, in a super flex redraft league, I absolutely need at least one anchor in the first 2 rounds. You need at least, if you're looking at the 109 and let's say the first 8 quarterbacks go off the board, you kind of have to bite the bullet and take a guy like Deshaun Watson at least on that turn, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we have Superflex rankings in the manifesto. I added those this week. If you guys are curious, I do have like Allen and Mahomes as the first 2 picks off the board in Superflex drafts. I think like Fantasy Pros, like ECR Superflex rankings still have like McCaffrey and Jefferson and stuff over those guys. And I personally, I even though you're not getting the longevity factor like you're getting in Dynasty, like you said, those guys are still like very high value over replacement in a league format now that rewards quarterback play in Superflex redraft leagues.
Yep, and typically on this turn, I would just smash QJ and Jordan Addison and just be done with it, but that's kind of boring for you guys. If I always take the same fucking players at my picks, I'm going to mix it up. So I will go with Calvin Ridley as my first wide receiver here, get ahead of that turn in case Chef here wants to build, a more of a win now type of team with Mahomes and the 2 running backs. No, he's probably going to target a wide receiver, so make sure I get Ridley there for the production piece. And then when I'm looking at this next turn, I can be stuck between a few guys, a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard in particular. Maybe I want to go, the route of like an Austin Eckler. I have a couple options there at the 5-2, but realistically, it will be tough to pass on either of those 2 rookie wide receivers that they fall back. Yeah, and they both go
for sure.
as expected.
They both go. Yeah, and Chef, it makes sense. He had a young team. Thoughts on Greg? Yeah, so Greg Dulcich, a little concerning. I put out a fantasy news short / TikTok a few minutes ago. And Greg Dulcich played, I believe it was 10 snaps out of 20 that Russell Wilson played, and Adam Troutman paid 15, which is not ideal. Like Greg Dulcich, part of the draw for him was like, dude, this guy was running so many routes right away. Like his rookie season, he already had beaten out like Albert O last year. So if he's not going to be the primary tight end as far as like the guy that's running the most routes, that really, really hinders kind of his upside because we're still talking about an offense that could potentially be bad. Like Russell Wilson did not really look that good last night when I was watching the game. So if Dulcich is not going to be like the 85% route participation tight end that I thought, and we still have more preseason time to make that determination, but that's a little discouraging, and I'm probably not going to be drafting much more of him in like when we go to Buffalo next week. Like I'm probably going to cool down my exposure just a bit.
For
Because I
what
think
it's
he's my highest drafted tight end, to be honest. I think I'm like
he's
20%.
absolutely up there for me as well. But I know. Okay, for those watching, please don't absorb preseason information like this, because at the end of the day, we are looking at the snaps, we're looking at the play with the starters, we're looking at exactly what teams are rolling out in their quote unquote starting lineups in the dress rehearsal that is the preseason. However, it was really nice fucking seeing Jerry Jeudy catch a nice little touchdown there. I'm not gonna lie. Being a Jerry Jeudy guy, seeing him catch that touchdown, it was nice. It was nice. Again, not taking anything away from
It
it
sounds
because
like you
that's not
are,
gonna.
dude. Like, you don't see me coming on here being like, dude, Jahan Dotson like
Dude,
cooked 2
hey,
people's ankles.
hey, you can appreciate the play without with realizing that it's really not meaningful in the long term. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Like
you'd rather see these guys look good. Like, I think
like,
Sam Howell being able to bounce back from like a rough first drive and look pretty good after
oh
that.
yeah,
George Pickens looks pretty good. I'll admit, like he looked like he was, maybe taking a step forward.
nice
So did Kenny
catch.
Pickett too, for what it's worth. He
Yeah,
looked a little bit better in that
Cowboys
game.
play today.
So yeah, definitely you want to see these guys look good. And I'm actually so cheesed that Kirk Cousins just went. I thought he was going to fall back to me.
Imagine Jalen Tolbert just like goes off today.
That would just be absolutely sickening.
Gross. Don't kill me. Okay, let's get back to some comments. My fault. Just went on a little tangent. 12-team Superflex PPR. Kyler at the 404, Addison at the 610, and Dobbins at the 812. Yeah, like you're cooking there. You're absolutely cooking. Which running backs are you taking over AJB in redraft? So AJ Brown for me is currently my 14th overall player. However, I'm not taking any running back over him outside of the top 3 of my rankings. So that in order would be Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, and Austin Eckler. After that, again, I have AJ Brown at 14. My next highest rated running back would be Pollard at 15. So I would take him over.
I have Chubb ranked over AJ Brown. I would
You
take
do,
Chubb
eh?
over him. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think you could probably talk me into taking Barkley over him too, who's my
what
RB5.
about Pollard?
Yeah, I mean Pollard's my 6. So like I think you could reasonably make the argument that all 3 of those guys could go over AJ Brown, just given like we saw a pretty nuts range of outcomes for the Eagles offense last year, the highest scoring offense in the league, very high efficiency, but the pass volume was kind of middle of the road. Of course, we know Devontae Smith is capable of carving out 130, 140 targets on any given season. Dallas Goedert was missing some time last year, and AJ Brown still only finished like wide receiver 8 in points per game, right? So like he doesn't really have the top 3, top 5 elite ceiling, which is fine because he's a wide receiver and we're not as worried about ceiling early on as we are with running backs. But I do think that Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and Tony Pollard have 20 plus point per game ceilings in their range of outcomes. So if you're playing the ceiling game, it actually makes more sense to go for those running backs than it does for AJ Brown. But I still think he's a fine projection and a guy that I'm high on, relatively speaking. I would still have him in my top 16, top 15 overall players.
Yeah, again, he's like my 14th overall player right now. Actually, he is my 14th overall. I don't know why I said the way I kind of look at it is kind of how you mentioned it. I like him. I don't think he has the highest ceiling given the Eagles passing offense in terms of both volume and overall target competition. And in that reason is why I lean to a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, while not projecting to be the Eagles in terms of offensive efficiency, I do think the Lions could be, a top 8 overall offense, which if that's the case, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a 10.5, 11 target per game type of player. A guy like Devontae Adams, he's kind of just already shown no matter of his situation, he's always going to be this stud wide receiver. I mean, heck, his team passing offense last year threw 24 touchdowns and he caught 14 of them. Like that's just a ceiling. I just think that's a ceiling that AJ Brown simply doesn't have with the other mouths on that Eagles offense. Which again, if you want to take AJ Brown over Adams because of the age, because of the downside risk, the cap injury,
he's a safer projection because of that stuff and because of the offensive risk that maybe the Raiders are a hot dumpster fire by week 7 and they trade Devontae Adams or something like that. That makes some sense. I can get behind that, but I do have AJ Brown wide receiver 10, and he is comfortably behind Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs. One thing, you want to hear a narrative-y Hard Knocks take that I thought of while I was watching the first episode?
What's up?
How much credence do you put to the fact that Garrett Wilson is practicing against probably the best corner in the NFL every single day?
Oh, I take credence of that as well. That's the same reason why I'm really excited about the Cowboys offense is you're going against a really, really good defense. I do think it matters in football. I know people never
I think that's part of the reason
why
Ayuk and Debo have been able to develop very well is because they're going up against the 49ers defense in practice. And the 49ers have been obviously a good defense for the last couple of years.
Well, 100%. And again, like obviously, Micah Parsons was going to succeed no matter what. But I can tell you right now, playing against 2 all-pro tackles when he came into the league as a rookie absolutely helped his development going from linebacker to edge rusher. You know what I mean? Like elite players going against elite competition, getting those good reps in, especially when they're young, is really, really crucial. So no, I do agree. Garrett Wilson going against Sauce, going against DJ Reed, going against that phenomenal secondary as a whole, definitely helped them. So I'm on the clock here. I'm looking at some wide receivers. I'll quickly make my pick, and then we can get back into that. I think Terry would be up there for me. I got Mike Williams I can wait on. I think I'll go Terry McLaurin. Mix it in.
Also, I drafted Travis Kelce and Nick Chubb in a startup, which I don't think you guys have ever seen me do in my life. The other thing too, it works the other way as well, because the Bucs were able to develop a lot of young corners going up against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in practice a lot, like Carlton Davis and Jamel, and those guys were able to develop quickly. So, I mean, completely narrative-y take, but it really helps Garrett Wilson as a young player, A, working with Aaron Rodgers, who's been around a lot of good receivers, and B, going up against Sauce Gardner every day in practice, who's obviously, I honest to God, he might be the best corner in the league already, legitimately. He's like,
he probably is.
But he might legit be the best corner in the NFL already.
I personally think the 2 best corners in the NFL right now are Patrick Surtain and Sauce Gardner. I think you put them in the order you want. That's fine. I think those are the clear top 2. Then you get into an area where you're talking about, like Jair Alexander. Where do you want to prop up Jalen Ramsey after a bad year last year? That's kind of like, the issue I have.
They're also good. Like those 2 that you mentioned, Sauce and Surtain, are more like sticky cover guys too, which would help a receiver more than like a ball hawk type of corner, like Trayvon Diggs, for example.
Sorry, quick note, guys. How you made Bush draft Nick Chubb at the 6-3? Are you really gonna make me draft Najee Harris? Because it's the 7-2. It's the 7-2, man.
No, I don't know how often you're gonna see Najee Harris go at the 7-2. I will say though, Jalen Warren outsnapped him yesterday with the first team, which is not ideal. Like, I don't think we can no longer say that Najee Harris has a bulletproof workload, because that was his draw before. And yeah, the Steelers' offense might be better, and he was injured last year and that kind of thing. He's just destined to finish RB14 in points per game, in my opinion. Like, and be like the new David Montgomery, where you're like, aside from that 2020 season where David Montgomery had like an easy schedule and finished like RB5 on the back of some monster games, I honestly think Montgomery's probably a better running back than Najee Harris too. So, dude, it's so brutal. I'm not like, do Najee Harris in the 3rd, 4th round. Let one of your buffoon league mates draft Najee Harris. Like, legitimately, don't draft him that high.
Like, if he falls to round 5 and he's in the range with like Dameon Pierce is probably going around him, and like Alexander Madison's probably going like the 5th round. At that point, like, sure, but
I'll take it. I would rather have Kenneth Walker dead ass. Like, I don't even give a shit that Zach Charbonnet's there. I'd rather have Kenneth Walker than Najee Harris.
But like the problem I have, dude, I've seen people take Najee in the 3rd round. I've seen people take Najee like the 3-4 turn, sometimes even in the 3rd round. But for the most part, like, he's usually off the board, even on underdog drafts at times, like early to mid 4th round max. Like, he fucking flies off the board. I think his ADP is like 37 overall, no?
Yeah, and we're talking about a site that like hates running backs also. Like, you'd think that I don't know. To me, he strikes me as like the dead zone running back this year that people don't think is a dead zone running back, kind of like what James Conner was 2 years ago, who actually ended up returning on ADP. But you know what I mean? Like, he's the volume projection that's not very good, but because he was a 1st round pick, we kind of like think he might be good, but everything should tell us that he probably isn't.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
If you want to get to the comments there, recent ones, because for some reason when you blocked the person, it cut off my comments until 12:53 p.m. for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, we're not there yet, so I can just handle the comments for now because I see everything. I was able to grab Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, T. Higgins, and Kyler Murray in a 14-team super flex along. Yeah, that's freakish. I don't know how you grab all those quarterbacks, but Joey, you are cooking there. Like, did Justin Fields fall to the 2nd round, or did you trade up? Like, I'm assuming you traded up, obviously, right? Like,
yeah, probably had
good work. Was offered Mac Jones and a 2025 2nd for Purdy. I wanted to try offloading one of my older players to get back more assets with the deal. I don't mind the structure, but I just don't like Mac Jones, to be honest. I don't know. What do you think about this? Mac and a 2nd for Purdy.
Oh, I'll take Purdy all day.
Like, I think I would too. If it was a different quarterback than Mac, I would say for leverage, I would do it. Like, even if it was like Desmond Ridder, I would probably fucking do that. But like Mac Jones, it's just like, what's the ceiling there? He's quarterback 18 in points per game on a bad offense. Like, at least with Purdy, I can convince myself, like, yeah, he's an immobile quarterback, but they have one of the biggest outlier situations in the entire NFL with
Dude,
San
he was
Francisco
literally a
given the
top
weapons.
12 fantasy quarterback when he started games.
But that's what I mean. It's like you would say, like, from a talent standpoint, from an ability standpoint, like, Matt, of course, Purdy offers you a little bit more out of structure, but they're more so like pocket level quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They're not going to rush, 35, 40 plus rushing yards per game. So when I can bank on the fact that he has Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, fucking Brandon Ayuk in that back, Christian McCaffrey, of course, in that backfield, then I mean, I would just rather take that.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
We
we're talking about him too much.
Yeah.
Jesus 218 decided to just take him.
Got shut down. Was I too greedy?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think you're too greedy. What are your top 4 draft positions in the full
here? Yeah, I guess
you got it, bro. At the 8-3, that's good value.
At the 8-3, Geno, I got the Seahawks duo here, the Russell Wilson and Geno Smith to anchor out. I mean, with this type of team, all you kind of need is like middling to back end QB1 production. I think both of those guys at their ceilings can give you that. If you have Bijan and Chubb to anchor out your running backs, Chase Smith, Kelsey, like those guys are going to be the guys that actually are the catalyst to win with a team that I've built so far.
Russ at the 8-3 is actually a really good value. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's bad value at all, especially when you consider the fact that like Kirk Cousins went at 5.8. Like I would rather have Kirk Cousins, but I mean, a 3.5 round discount or 3-round discount, like I don't think it's that big of a difference.
Agree with you there. Steven, really interesting question. What are your top 4 draft positions in the full PPR? Right off the bat, the top 2, in my opinion, you got to go 1 and 2, simply because Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are kind of just at a different level. So I would say those are the top 2. At that point, man, like
the answer for me is wherever you think you can get Bijan.
That would be number 3.
If you think you can get Bijan at 9, then that would be the second top one. If you think you have to pick him at 5, then that would probably I'm not gonna. You guys know I love Bijan this year, so I'm not gonna go too in depth with it. But the way I look at Bijan Robinson is you're getting a legendary upside swing potentially in the mid to late first round of your draft. So if you can get him at 6, at 7, at 8, at 9, potentially in the second round, like I've seen some people say, then you're at a huge advantage as opposed to the rest of your league. So that would be my answer. So if you think you can get him at 8, then I think that would be the second best after those top 2.
I would agree. I would say there's 2 possible 3-player combinations that I would rank there, right? The first one being if you can get some combination of Diggs, Pollard, and Josh Allen, I think that is like one of my favorite trios in the drafts right now. And that's usually around, pick 5 or pick 6. You're going to be able to do that. Or like you said, if you're Bijan, if you get
Josh Allen that late in the 3rd round, like in the mid-3rd,
in the mid-3rd round, he falls sometimes. I'll find him.
Yeah, he definitely does fall sometime. Like the video that I dropped yesterday, obviously I got a Bijan, Pollard, and Allen start from the 4 slot. So I think this year, I don't know if you feel this way too. This year more than any other, I'm more against consensus in the 1st round. Like most years, like last year, I remember the consensus was you had Taylor and McCaffrey in some order. Then you had Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, and Justin Jefferson in some order. And those were the clear top 5. Most people agreed on that. But this year, like Bijan RB1 is not a consensus take. Most people have Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler RB1. Then when it comes to wide receivers, I'm lower on Cooper Kupp. So I would rather have Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb than Cooper Kupp. And Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb are routinely going at the end of the 1st round. So for me, I actually don't think there's a bad spot to draft from because there's some spot in my rankings that you can kind of not outsmart consensus. What's the word I'm looking for? Take advantage of consensus and what consensus thinks. Exploit consensus, right? Because I have Stephon Diggs as like my 7th overall player, but you can get him at like 11 sometimes. Same with CeeDee Lamb. You can get him in like the early 2nd round sometimes. He's like my 8th overall player, my 7th overall player or something.
Diggs is a top 5 player for me. Anytime I can get him outside of the top 5, I basically feel like I'm stealing. And right now, again, I was kind of left at the decision point when I was doing my mocks yesterday. And I've talked to you about it on the side, but the more I think about it, man, like, again, my current top 5 are in order: Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and Bijan Robinson. But like, the more I think about it, especially given what I expect to fall to the end of the 2nd round, like if you're picking 3 overall and Pollard, Pollard up in terms of running backs are all going to be off the board and you're pretty much eyeing down maybe Josh Allen and Calvin Ridley. Like at that point, I'm kind of more willing to draft Bijan Robinson ahead of market. I'm willing to draft him at 3rd overall, knowing that at the end of the 2nd, I'm probably not going to have like a guy like Pollard fall to me. And I'm realistically going to be going like quarterback, wide receiver, or wide receiver tight end at that spot if I want to take Mark Andrews. So for me personally, I just think from a structural standpoint, like taking Bijan early now is actually giving you a lot more advantage than I've actually thought it would.
Yeah, no, I like the structural play there. I'm a little annoyed that the Falcons rested everybody yesterday because we're going to Buffalo on Wednesday. We won't get to see another preseason game. I really did want to see how they used Bijan in the preseason, or if they gave him, like maybe they played Algier and Cordero in the preseason. They gave Bijan the night off or something, which is what I think is probably going to end up happening in the next preseason game. But I'm not exactly sure. So yeah, I'm really interested. The nice thing is for my home league draft, I don't draft until my birthday. Like I don't draft until Labor Day Monday. So I'm going to have all the information I need to know, like as of now, I'm leaning towards Bijan Robinson over Tyreek Hill. But if we get to my birthday and Bijan was splitting first team snaps with Tyler Algier, I think I have to take Tyreek Hill over him.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I mean, like we've gotten to the point where we're so ahead of market. I mean, this applies more so to underdog. Obviously, when you're in your
snipes, by the way, like Mike Evans, right, 1 pick before me. I hate that.
Obviously, in your redraft home leagues, like you're probably playing, let's just say the average redraft player plays between 3 and 10 redraft leagues a year. It's not like underdog where you're smashing out 100 plus fucking BBMs. In your 10 leagues, like go get your guy, you know what I mean? Whereas when you're dealing with a large portfolio like underdog, like if I have Bijan Robinson ranked 3rd overall and I take him anytime he falls to 3 or later, I'm going to have way too much Bijan Robinson. Whereas if we're doing 150 drafts and I'm drafting him closer to ADP, but having an absolute market lean on him for sure, like maybe taking him 6th, 7th, 8th overall, I'm still going to have a healthy exposure to Bijan Robinson, but I'll still make sure my Diggs and my Tyreek Hill will be up there. So in underdog specifically, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking Bijan at 3rd overall, at 4th overall. But in your redraft leagues, because you're dealing with less of them, if you want to have the conviction and you want to take that guy that high because you're not dealing with, again, a 100, 125, 150 team portfolio, then I'm all for it, to be honest. Because I do think out of any running back in fantasy football, like he's the easiest projection to have 22, 23, even 25 PPR points per game.
Yeah, there's also the aspect of market value to keep in mind in a managed league too, because you can make trades, right? So if Bijan looks like a superstar and he's going to, win people leagues, not that you're going to trade him, you probably shouldn't, but he does have at least that ability if you wanted to. And that doesn't factor in obviously in best ball because there's no moves.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, Michael, yes, we are talking about Tyreek and Bijan in redraft because obviously in Dynasty, you're taking Tyreek out. No, I'm kidding. You're obviously taking Bijan Robinson in Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm going to take Pacheco here. I don't usually mix him in. I actually considered taking Sanders with my last pick because he actually has like a little bit of job security with the contract that he signed. But I'll take Pacheco here. I'm kind of building out a weird win now team that I don't really love, if I'm being honest. But I do like the positional advantages I've built out at wide receiver, running back, and tight end there.
Josh, if anybody tries to convince you otherwise, don't listen to them. Bijan Robinson is still the 101 by far.
Yeah. Gibbs is a nice player, and he's definitely going to have value in redraft this year too. But it's Bijan.
Yeah. Who has more trade value though? Probably Fields. No,
this was in regards to Jefferson and Fields. I think probably, honestly, I actually think Jefferson probably has more trade value because
I agree.
It's universally understood across every fantasy player that Justin Jefferson's a superstar, whereas Fields is a little bit more controversial.
Well, we're like us personally are as quarterback heavy evaluators as possible. Like our top 7 overall players, our top 8 overall players are quarterbacks. In some leagues, you'll have people valuing Jefferson as like the 103, the 104 overall. Like they'll say, okay, after Allen, Mahomes, and maybe Hurts are off the board, they're comfortable taking Jefferson like within the top 5 overall. So if you're balancing it out, they're already a toss-up in our rankings personally. We prefer the wide receiver, but we would agree that it's relatively close because Fields has the opportunity to enter that quarterback tier. But given the fact that we're already ahead of the quarterback market and we still prefer the wide receivers, means that on the open market, if you were to sell Justin Jefferson, you're going to get the guys, like I said, who have him 4, 5 overall, have Jamar Chase 4, 5, 6 overall. So I do think in the majority of leagues, if you look at it from a macro standpoint, are going to value Jefferson, are going to value Chase over a guy like Fields.
Yeah, yeah, because Fields, there's legit concerns with him. There's very few concerns with those two guys.
Yep. I'm gonna be back on the clock. Uh,
Dude,
wide
are we getting
receivers, maybe.
close to 12:53 p.m. by the way?
It is 1:16 p.m.
No, sorry, on the comments because I can't see.
Oh,
They got cut off for me.
12:49. Bush
12:49. Okay,
having
let's speed through them up here.
okay.
So I
Bush
can help
having a
out with them.
sexual reaction to dig snipe.
Yeah, I did hit an on that one.
10 team, 2 flex, 1 super flex. Quarterbacks Hurts, Burrow, Ritter. Running backs Bijan, Pierce, Dobbins, etc. There. Wide receivers AJ Brown, DJ Moore. Do you have a follow-up question or you just listen to your
I think
team?
he's just bragging about his team.
Nice, respectable.
I mean, Hurts and Burrow is a pretty lethal duo.
Yeah.
Having Bijan plus, this is like the ideal like hero RB running back core because I actually have a team exactly like this with Bijan as my main running back, and I also have Pierce and Dobbins as my backups or as my RB2 and 3. So I kind of really like that core of running backs to go along with Bijan, and then obviously you're strong at tight end and wide receiver too. So
yep, I respect it. Do I have to go with the knucklehead if Chef doesn't? Like
who?
the knucklehead, the knuckleheads fall into the 11th round. If he falls,
I think
in,
Madison
I
is also kind of a steal at this point in time.
Yeah, I was between him and Montgomery with my last pick. I could take him.
Why are you guys
James
making
Conner's
us
not
take
bad
bad
either.
running backs? Like I hate it. Stop making
I don't
us
like
take
it.
these guys. Draft them. Be a dumb league mate.
Well, that I noticed people were like just fading the running backs overall. That's kind of why I leaned Sky more over Charbonnet because I'm like, okay, well, a running back's more likely to make it back to me at the 10-11 than like a guy like Sky Moore would be.
Yeah.
Like, I think Sky Moore at the 9 too. Like especially given he's going around there and redraft is a nice little value there too. He does go with Kadarius Toney. Thank you for not forcing me to do that. That would have been gross.
Also, Marvin Mims going over Charbonnet is pretty surprising. Also,
yeah.
I'd imagine that Mims, if you guys haven't had your rookie draft, is going to go a lot higher now than he would have gone when me and you did all of our rookie drafts. Like Mims was routinely available in like the mid to late second round in a lot of cases, but he's probably going around closer to the 1-2 turn, I would imagine now.
Yep. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm deceased. Hey guys, I'm in a startup right now, and 8 of the 12 teams look like they want to contend. So I just not take any running back. You basically got it covered, brother. If 8 of the 12 teams want to contend, guess what? You're collecting everybody's picks. You're not drafting a single running back, and you're building quarterbacks and wide receivers up out of the wazoo. If 8 of the 12 teams are contending, and you're not leaving that startup draft with at least 3+ first accumulated, something's wrong.
Yeah, and that also could mean too that like the other 3 teams that are not 8 of the 12 might be like not know what they're doing and just draft like balanced teams or middle of the road teams. Like I doubt that 4 teams are trying to tear it down completely. There's probably like 1 or 2 maybe other teams that are trying to completely punt the running back position. So yeah, definitely fade what your room's doing there.
Hey, Exchange fan, made a trade in my Dynasty League today. Traded Javonte in a first for Brees in a third. 10-team Superflex half PPR start 12 thoughts. It's closer in a start 12. However, I just got to take Brees Hall here because I do think from a market value standpoint, he's kind of like a cut above where Javonte is, and a mid to late first to leverage up to a player that I think can legitimately be not the running back 1 overall in Dynasty, because I still think no matter what Bijan does, he's probably still going to be the running back 1. But Brees Hall, a year time, could be a clear running back 2 in Dynasty and a clear mid second round type of startup pick.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's weird because Javonte is the one that's healthy right now of the 2. But I do think the value kind of leans itself to the Brees side. I'm not a huge Desmond Ridder guy, but I will take Desmond Ridder at the 11-10. At the 11-10, I will take Desmond Ridder. I'm not generally very high on him. I'm going to actually, by the way, switch the clock to 30 seconds so we can make sure that we're motoring through, because I set this to 15 rounds, which is typically deeper than we normally go. So I wanted to just make sure we'd move it along in time. So are we back to where I'm at? Bobcat is the first question that I can see.
Nearly. We are on Pionio. I don't even draft kicker or defense if there's time before the season. Yeah, I agree with you, Pionio. And now we are fully caught up. How was your vacation, Bush?
Okay, perfect. I was just at my cottage, my parents' cottage with my fam, my girlfriend, my brother and his fiance and their kids, and then my sister was up there. So we were just, doing the usual cottage stuff, going fishing and all that stuff. I am on the clock. I don't want to get fired here. Do I want to take another quarterback? I'm building out a competitive team. I think Matthew Stafford's also a huge value at this point in time. So I'm just going to grab Matthew Stafford.
By the way, oh fuck you! I wanted him. You already got Ritter, asshole.
Sorry, I do 12-3 Matthew Stafford. It's a very good chance that if I had known I could have gotten Matthew Stafford and Ritter here, I probably wouldn't have taken Russell
Hey,
Wilson at the 8-3.
well, why do you think I took Madison at my last pick? I thought at least one of the quarterbacks would fall.
You still got Tannehill and Garoppolo on the board.
Yeah, I know. I'm just busting your balls.
Um,
By the way, real quick, Bush, too. I was talking with Ron, and we got to make it happen next summer, underdog or not. Like, even if it's just us going, we got to go fucking link up with Ron. We got to go hit 18 holes.
Yeah, that would be fun,
dude. Because
yeah,
we
I
were
think
talking.
we could make that happen for sure, especially
100%.
if there's like some kind of football related content involved. I'm
yeah.
sure we could do some live shit.
Oh man, fucking.
You look at these guys. I say Garoppolo and Tannehill are
come
gonna
on,
fall to you. They
man.
just immediately take him with the next 2 picks. You'd love to see that.
So if you guys are trying to corner me out of the quarterback market with this garbage, I'm just going to trade for one in season. Apparently, how about this, Garbo? You said you wanted to move Cup because Cup's on the block. Cup and Tannehill for I don't know, a first and something that I have. We could figure it out.
Yeah. Andrew says he's still scared to go 0 RB in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex redraft league. So yeah, I mean, 0 RB is not going to work in every league format. And I will say, Andrew, I'm a little nervous to do 0 RB in that type of format as well. It works way better in league formats where you can start 4 or 5 wide receivers at a time. It's a full PPR league. Everybody's thirsty for running backs. The only way you can realistically go 0 RB in a format that's like a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex PPR league, or not even PPR, is if like the running back thirst is so vast that you're getting like wide receiver 1 at the price of running back 4. And like Jefferson's fallen to 1.5 or something, and then so on and so forth.
Sorry, I was just pretending to shake Brandon's hand in the chat.
Oh, nice.
You got where we left off, right?
I think so, yes. Okay, we got maybe Dulcich sprained his hair. Now that hair is strong as hell. You're on the clock, by the way. In all fairness, that O-line looked garbage. Russ had no time at all. So one thing that's actually been very predictive when it comes to like win totals and that kind of thing has been offensive line play. It has like a very positive correlation to like, if you think about last year, think about the teams that really disappointed, the Rams, the Bucks, the Broncos, like those teams didn't really have the greatest offensive lines relative to the expectations that we had. So going into the season, knowing that like certain teams are not going to have good offensive lines, it should raise your hair up a little bit. You should be like, this team could disappoint, because bad line play can really disrupt the rhythm of your offense and make your quarterback nervous if he's not good with pressure and that kind of thing. So, it makes me a little nervous knowing that the Broncos don't have some like substantially upgraded offensive line this year, but maybe Peyton's scheme will help with that. Who knows?
Yep. No, I 100% agree with you there. Would have loved a quarterback here, but that's okay. Me and Brandon got the trade after the draft. We're cool. And I'll go with Khalil Herbert. I think Khalil Herbert at the 13-2 is really solid. The way I kind of look at it,
space. I think Darnell Mooney is probably a little bit better of a prospect than what Tank Dell represented. I think Tank Dell is kind of just like Wandale, except not an early declare. Like he's kind of like a worse Wandale as a prospect, which is not a bad thing, because Wandale was on a nice little pace there before he blew his knee out. Yeah,
no, I agree with you there. Thoughts on the same Saints backfield with the 3 running backs? Game suspension. Oh, 3-game suspension for Kamara. The way I look at it is that Kendre Miller is going to be the back I probably have the most here, because he's going the cheapest, and I think he's got the upside. We kind of know what Jamal Williams is going to be. He's going to be that between the tackles grinder. He's going to be that goal line running back. At least with Kendre Miller, I can kind of convince myself that if Kamara misses the 3 games and Kendre does have a good start to the year, he can be that, full 3-down workload type of running back for that team. Whereas Jamal Williams, I just don't really see that being the case. With Alvin Kamara, though, obviously we know if he's on the field and he's healthy, he should be the main running back. But if I'm going to bet on the guy, I'm going to bet on the rookie day 2 pick that they just took in the NFL draft, basically.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to do a video on like late round running back sleepers, especially with all the strategy content that we've been putting out in regards to like Zero and Hero RB. Those guys make obviously great targets to fill out your depth and fill out your bench to try and get those RB2 archetypes to hit on. And this is one of the murkiest backfields in the NFL. I would imagine. Easily. Like I think there's not many that are murkier than this one. And these are precisely the backfields that you want to take shots on. And Kendra could be the highest. Like, I actually like all of them realistically. Like,
I do
if
too.
you can talk you can talk yourself into Jamal Williams getting out to an early start at the beginning of the season, maybe flipping him, especially think of how reactionary some redraft leagues are. If Jamal Williams goes out there, scores like 2 touchdowns,
The RB11.
he just had a great season last year with Detroit, and Alvin Kamara is suspended for 3 games. There's a good chance that you could upload or offload him in a package deal, similar to what I always talk about during the season's trade targets videos. You take Jamal Williams and Mike Evans, for example, you might be able to upgrade to Jerry Jeudy, who had a down first 2-game season, a 2-game stretch to start the season or something like that.
Or maybe if you want to get even like spicier, maybe you attach, let's say Stephon Diggs gets off to a bad first few games and Devontae Smith looks fucking phenomenal. And you could center a package, Devontae Smith plus Jamal Williams, to get Stephon Diggs hypothetically. Like, that's already a fucking sick deal. You know, any of those tier 1 wide receivers, if they get off to a slow start, I'm definitely going to try and buy. I would say Mark Andrews, another one that I really like maybe not Devontae Smith, because obviously that's, you know, a good, really good wide receiver. But hypothetically, if we're looking here, Deebo Samuel gets off to a good start, and all it costs you to go from Deebo to Mark Andrews is like Deebo Samuel plus Jamal Williams for Mark Andrews plus a small piece back. That's a fucking great deal too, because as we know, Mark Andrews has every clear path to being a top 2 overall tight end. Deebo Samuel, I have a hard time seeing finishing as a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Darrell Henderson last year, Darrell Henderson, did he win anybody anything? No, like he wasn't even literally on the Rams like midway through the season. They literally cut him. But you could have shopped Darrell Henderson early on in the season. I traded Dalvin Cook and Darrell Henderson for Breece Hall, which would have aged beautifully if Breece didn't blow his knee out. So Darrell Henderson, I believe you talked about him in one of your superlatives videos as like a sleeper or something like that. And even though, like we said, it doesn't come to fruition in the long term, he didn't have like a great fantasy season. We got to remember that this is a week by week game and perception changes pretty quickly on these players. So if you get players that hit early on in the season, like Jamal Williams could, in a vacuum, people are like, oh, this guy's giving me RB2 production. Even if you don't think that's going to continue, you can still offload him as part of package deals or, you know, 1-for-1 for young upside rookie wide receivers or something like that. Like, you'll probably be able to sell Jamal Williams 1-for-1 for, I don't know, a rookie wide receiver this year that's off to a slow start or maybe isn't on the field very much. Maybe Marvin Mims isn't playing the second most snaps or the third most snaps, and you can offload a Jamal Williams after 2 games of, you know, solid production for a guy like Marvin Mims that's going to help you long term.
Well, I got a prime example for you because this has actually happened in our redraft listener league last year, right? So last year we saw Gabe Davis in the first game against the Rams, caught a big touchdown, 4 catches, 88 yards and a touchdown. Missed week 2 because he was banged up. And then week 3, still commanded 6 targets that week. After week 3, that was kind of after Lamb had like a little bit of a disappointing game against, I believe it was the Bengals at that point. I want to say because it was week 2 he played. Week 3 is when I traded him. I traded away last year when Dak was hurt. People were pessimistic about Lamb. When Ramondre was working behind Damian Harris, and when Darrell Henderson was working ahead of Cam Akers.
I already know the trade that you're about to say, and it's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard that you were able to do this.
I traded away last year Gabe Davis and Darrell Henderson for CeeDee Lamb and Ramondre Stevenson after like week 2 or week 3. Keep this in mind. Like at the time, the perception was Gabe Davis is going to be on this really good offense. We don't know how the Cowboys offense is going to look with that. Running back, Penny, sure. We don't know how the Cowboys offense is going to look with Dak gone. We don't know if CD is going to be up to par. And that was when, again, Ramondre Stevenson hadn't broken out from that backfield. Could you imagine like saying that exact trade now? I mean, you can't imagine because you guys are in the room with me. That might be one of the most disgusting trades that's materialized overall. But at the time, I probably got like a slight favor on that deal, but it was a lot closer than when we look back at it now and say, holy fuck, like that's a top 7 wide receiver and a top 8 running back. You know what I mean?
I still can't believe that you got that trade done. Who was it? Put him on the grill. Who did you trade that to?
I mean, I can show it right now. Here, one sec. Who was it? Oh, G Shiesty I found. But yeah, if you guys needed proof, it should happen sometimes.
Yeah, that's a way better try. I see. I kind of fleeced Fled a little bit. I traded him Justin Jefferson, Julio Jones, and Deontay Johnson, but he traded me AJ Brown, T Higgins, and who was the other guy? Chris Godwin. So that was, I kind of fleeced him pretty hard. Jefferson obviously moves the needle a lot, but Julio Jones and Deontay were not good last year. So I got
Wait, so
three
it's
like
AJ and
back
T,
end
right?
wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 types for Justin Jefferson essentially.
Jesus. Yeah. I'll tell you right now too. I bet you still felt gross trading away Jefferson, even though you got a
Oh, I
fucking great
did,
deal
but getting
back.
AJ, T Higgins,
Oh,
and Godwin
100%.
definitely helps.
100%. Is JT fucking throwing right now? Oh my god. He hasn't birdied at all yet. Sad. Damn it, he double putt freaking first hole. He could have birdied and you double putt. Anyways, that's the last thing you'll hear from me talking about golf on the stream.
Yeah, we got. I mean, like we're really behind on comments, and again, it's
Just rip
dipped
them.
over from like 12:59 to 1:13 for me. So if you wanna pick out some
Yeah, I
interesting
got some.
ones, just rip them through if you want.
I respect it, Mighty. Thoughts on the Kyler value in this draft? I started chase Kyler in a recent startup at the 10th spot and wondered if I reached. More than fine with Kyler. The 3,
Yeah, dude,
4 should not be happening.
Kyler went 3-4. You
Dude,
took Dak over Kyler?
he was listed higher. I must have not even noticed because I assumed he was gone. That's fucked.
Okay, yeah, that's crazy. I would have. Yeah, I mean, you probably would have gone with Kyler. Obviously,
I didn't even know he was available, to be honest. I just assumed he went in this fucking logjam. It's a lot harder to see who's on the board when you're on the stream, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
But,
we make on stream mistakes quite often. This is definitely the deepest we've ever gone into a startup. By the way, this is disgusting. These players.
Facts. For the record, YouTube, Kyler Murray, I would take over Dak Prescott. I would take over Bryce Young. I would take literally. I would take him over Bijan, but if you want to say, okay, Bijan over him, I think that's fine. I think the floor he should be making in this draft is at least a 2-4. I mean, even if you got Garrett Wilson ahead here, you put Garrett Wilson back, the floor that Kyler should be reaching in any startup is 2-3.
Yeah. I probably like in a vacuum, I probably would have taken him over Bijan, but because I took Chase in the first round, I was like, let me see what's going on here. Let me try and get like a win now team going.
I don't really have an excuse for the Dak over Kyler because I mean like the rushing upside in fantasy is just way too much. So you definitely 6-point passing touchdown is closer, but I mean a 4-point, especially with this setting, like Kyler Murray's got 25 point per game upside and he's younger.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to keep this one under an hour, this stream, if possible. So let's just go over our teams. Apologies if we didn't get to your question. We'll answer this last one from Smooth Criminal, and then we'll hop off here. If you guys want to leave your question, if we didn't get to it, like in the stream or in the comments, better yet, of the previous video that we launched yesterday, get that one boosted up in the algo even more than it already has been. Go leave that question in there, and we'll get to your question after the stream is over. But like I said, I wanted to try something different. I don't usually go with non-quarterbacks early on in drafts, but I went with Chase and Bijan. Obviously, they're my number 1 ranked wide receiver and running back in Dynasty. So I wanted my absolute positional anchors there. At the 310, seemed a little early for like a Daniel Jones for me. And I was hoping like Tua would fall back to me. If Tua had fallen back to me, I definitely would have gone with him. But I grab a receiver value there with Devontae Smith. Again, I'm not one to take Travis Kelce in the 4th round. I don't think that's quite the best value in the world, but he's a guy that's going to be a huge positional advantage. So getting him 4-3 is not terrible. And then Geno at the 5-10, I think was fine. You get a quarterback that can be productive. Nick Chubb, never going to find him in the 6-3 in any other draft room except for this one. So I just took the value there. Christian Kirk at the 7-10, Russ at the 8-3, Gabe Davis at the 9-10. Somebody who was like, how do you not take Sanders there? I could have definitely taken Miles Sanders or Cam Akers or somebody with that pick as well. But I like the upside of Gabe Davis, and I was a little weak at wide receiver already. Isaiah Pacheco, Desmond Ridder, Matthew Stafford, Michael Thomas, Alan Lazard, and Deuce Vaughn. I just took some guys that I thought were values at that point in the draft.
Yeah, fuck with it. For my draft, pretty similar. We both kind of built win nows. We kind of did it in different ways though, because you obviously waited at the quarterback position, got 4 shots at there. I only got 2 shots, but my 2 shots were Josh Allen and Dak Prescott. So I started Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, like mentioned. Mark Andrews at that 3-2, get that positional advantage at the tight end position. So don't mind getting that there for a win now team. And then from then on, I was just filling out my running back and wide receiver position. Calvin Ridley, 4'11", a guy that I'm comfortable with at this range. Again, you could argue if Devontae Adams, Jerry Jeudy fall, you take him, but I do think that Calvin Ridley as a top 24 level wide receiver valuation in Dynasty is appropriate. Tony Pollard, I just think at the 5-2, he can be my anchor running back there. Top 5 overall upside, a guy I have ranked as my 4th overall running back in a redraft. Terry McLaurin falling to me at the 6-11 PPR league. I don't mind getting, a wide receiver 2 at that point around the likes of Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper. I kind of view them all relatively similar. Najee Harris, I just think 7-2 was cheap for him, so I want to get exposure there. He's usually going, round 5 or so in the majority of drafts, so 7-2 I think is appropriate. Tyler Lockett, Sky Moore, build out my wide receiver core. Obviously invested a little bit at running back, so I wanted to catch up the 8 ball there. But then we get to the 10-11, and honestly, like the wide receivers, I just couldn't put over the running backs in this range. Like David Montgomery and Alex Madison, you guys know my thoughts on them. I don't think they're very talented players, but when I'm staring down the barrel of some of the wide receivers that were left on the board, I kind of just had to pull the trigger there. End up backfilling there with Cortland Sutton and Rashid Shaheed to my wide receiver core, and Khalil Herbert and Rashad Penny presenting some nice values at running back at the 13-14. So,
this is the most green I've ever seen on a startup draft for you. The most green I've ever seen. Also, if you value Tony Pollard in the 5th round, how about trading for him in the no flocking league for me? Because nobody wants to trade.
I was going to offer
Tony Pollard. I've never had this much trouble selling a top 5 redraft running back in my life.
I think I was actually forming a deal for him. Oh, by the way, speaking of deals, Too Lazy, I sent you a deal yesterday. Did you see it?
Oh, did you? I'll react live.
You can look at it. Again, that's the heavy rebuild team. I'm contending team, so it could suit both of us here.
Yeah, no, this is like this team is so bad it might as well be an orphan, like the team that I have. Like it's definitely the worst dynasty team that I have. I got sniped constantly in the startup draft, had a couple busts here and there, and just the team is in shambles. So Danny sends me a trade. He wants Bijan.
You'll see the offer,
you send me Breece Hall, a 26 first, and Damian Harris. At face value, I don't think that's a terrible offer, but the thesis of trading Bijan is that I'm not in the mood to compete. So why would I then acquire 2 running backs?
That's more so just because you're not in a point where you can consolidate your assets, so at least you have more selling opportunities.
That's fair. That's fair. But at the same time, I would much rather do that deal if it was like Jalen Waddle, an upside wide receiver swing, and a 26 first for Bijan Robinson. Because to me, that just fits my team build better. I think I'll have better opportunities to sell Bijan at a later point in time.
I mean, that offer is going to be available anyway, so you're not really hard pressed to make it in August.
Yeah. So yeah, like my team outside of Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, Sam Howell, and Bijan, like my wide receiver core is awful. Like I have nobody at wide receiver. So I'm just waiting on spending my picks in 24, and I have 3 1s in 25 and that kind of thing. So I'm looking to fill up my wide receiver core in these next couple draft classes here.
Now that we're actually on, let me see what I can do with that offer. Maybe it'll look better. I mean, like,
I'm so barren at wide receiver that's like pretty much the only thing I care about getting. And realistically, the only guy that interests me on your team is CeeDee Lamb. So
got so many running backs. Like,
yeah, you have so many running backs, and all of your wide receivers, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley, not guys I'm interested in. So
for what it's worth, chat. So my running back core right now, it's a best ball, so it's nice to have like options like this because you're just basically playing weekly upside anyways. But I've been trying to transition these running backs who I got basically all values in the draft and in the trade cycles. Nobody wants to trade me equivalent value wide receivers in this league because they're too sharp.
Oh, dude, wide receivers are pulling teeth to try and get them off of people's teams in this league.
I have Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, Dameon Pierce, Brian Robinson, Damian Harris, Tyler Algier, and I have one other running back, I'm pretty sure. Did I miss someone? Did I? Oh, Jamal Williams. That's who I had. Yeah.
So I'm trying to sell Bijan and Dobbins in this league, and I just can't do it. So,
oh, James, you didn't auto draft. You picked. So why did it make me auto draft then? That's fucking weird.
Yeah, that was really strange that it did that. Anyways, we are probably going to sign off of here. Blink actually asked, like, what do we think of his team? He said, sorry, I kept sniping you. I think that was a pretty good, like, 0 RB type of start there. Good deviation for those good archetypes, Kenneth Walker and J.K. Dobbins. I think you got good value on those 2 players. Jordan Love seemed a little redundant. I probably would have waited a little longer at quarterback, grabbed another wide receiver like Christian Kirk or Deontay or Mike Williams there. But aside from that, I think the team is pretty well designed.
I'll quickly say, that's the only gripe I have is maybe instead of one of the 3 quarterback picks, you spent that at maybe wide receiver or maybe you got an earlier tight end. Like right off the bat,
value on Jones and Goff, so I don't really feel bad on those 2 guys.
I don't mind it, but
just Love at 7.9 seems like it's great value. But to be honest, he's kind of I don't view him all that differently than Brock Purdy and Sam Howell, who you can get like 3 rounds later.
I mean, clearly not in this room because Sam Howell and Brock Purdy both went in the next round. So
right, but usually you can get them in like the 9th, 10th round.
Fair. The other thing I will say is maybe in your spot, like As much as I like Goff, I probably go George Kittle there, knowing that you're in a more competing window. So maybe you go George Kittle and then you backfill, because realistically, the difference between a guy like Goff and a guy like Russ is very negligible, in my opinion. Whereas the difference between George Kittle and some of the wide receivers and tight end like Dalton Kincaid or Marquise Brown, receivers like that, I think is much more substantial, especially given the fact that you're banking on production because you drafted 3 straight wide receivers to start your draft.
Yeah, for sure. So NMB one. This will be the last thing that we do before we sign out here. He just said, "What about my full 0 RB?" So Richardson, too rich for me on Richardson, but I don't think that's terrible. Knowing if you just swap Watson and Richardson, it's fine. Yeah. T. Higgins, Christian Watson, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Ontae Johnson, Elijah Moore, Cam Akers. I love the archetypes you got for your 0 RB guys.
He Akers, smashed that.
Tank Bigsby. I actually really like this team, to be honest. So I think you did a really good job. So like I said, if we did not get to your question, leave it on the comments once this live stream is done. We'll get to that, or comment it on yesterday's video, even better. What's up, Danny?
CJ Stroud fell to the 4-7.
Yeah, CJ Stroud did fall to the 4-7. So that must be a reaction to how he looked on Thursday. So I mean, if you guys are in Dynasty right now, definitely go send out some offers for CJ Stroud, because it's a preseason game. He's a rookie quarterback. He's not going to look good. Remember Kyler Murray clapping on his first preseason game? He didn't look like he knew what the fuck he was doing at all. So CJ Stroud, I'm not concerned whatsoever. Send out an offer if you can get CJ Stroud straight up for a guy like Josh Jacobs, who went right after him in this draft or whatever, and you're trying to rebuild. That's a perfect transition. Get yourself a young quarterback for an aging running back or something like that. So we are going to sign out here. Like I said, leave any questions in the comments. Like the stream if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure to check out our redraft rankings draft guide. Redraft rankings manifesto is available for just $10 on Underdog Fantasy. You can get that by signing up and depositing using the promo code FSE. They have a ton of contests to get you sharpened up for your home league drafts as well. So as a thank you for signing up over there, you'll get our redraft rankings manifesto for free, and also our weekly rankings as well. So without further ado, I'm trying to close this out. Can't do it right now, but I'm going to just try and put this up on the screen, and we are going to close this stream out. So peace out, fellas. We'll talk to you soon.